Climate change isn't something new. We've been feeling its impact for a very long time. In recent years, the world has faced staggering surge in environmental disasters.
Think back to the Australian bushfires of 2020, the devastating floods that swept through Germany and Indonesia in 2021, and the wildfire that engulfed an entire neighborhood in Los Angeles in early 2025.
Meanwhile, the World Meteorological Organization reported that 2024 was the hottest year recorded in history, capping off a decade of unrelentless human-driven heat. These events aren't just warning signs anymore. It's here, it's now, and it's accelerating.
Now, what if we told you that accountants, yes, the people you think of when you hear balance sheet and bookkeeping, could be heroes in the fight against climate change? Hi! We're Planet Keepers, and today we're flipping the script. We're diving into how accountants can lead the change and building stronger, smarter, and more climate resilient organizations.
Because resilience isn't just a policy, it's a mindset.
And it starts with shifting our perspective. According to the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report 2025, climate-related threats are ranked as the top global risks, outpacing geopolitical tensions and economic instability. In 2024 alone, climate disasters cost the global economy over $300 billion. And if we continue down this path, we are looking trillion in damages by 2050. Not only in infrastructure losses, but also in productivity, health, and food security.
But how did we get here? It all traces back to the Industrial Revolution,
when factories started booming and fossil fuels became the engine of progress. Behind that progress, billions of tons of carbon dioxide pumped into the air with every coal fire and engine roar.
Over time, the carbon started building up in our atmosphere, which triggers the greenhouse effects, trapping heats, melting polar ice caps, and steadily warming our planet. What seemed invisible back then has now become impossible to ignore.
In 2023, global carbon dioxide emissions hit a record high of 37.4 billion metric tons, according to the International Energy Agency. That's equivalent to releasing more than 100 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every single day.
This is where the concept of net zero comes in.
Net zero means cutting greenhouse gas emissions to as close to zero as possible, and then balancing out any remaining emissions by removing an equivalent amount from the atmosphere. It's not just an idea, it's a global mission.
But here's the good news, we're evolving, step by step, but with certainty.
195 countries have signed the Paris Agreement, committing to limit global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius and aiming for 1.5 degrees Celsius. This means slashing emissions, switching to clean energy, and investing in sustainable development.
Therefore, the world's biggest emitters like the United States, China, and members of the European Union have pledged to reach net zero within the next few decades. And they're not alone. Big corporations are leading the way.
Apple has committed to become carbon neutral across its entire supply chain and product life cycle by 2030. Adidas started crafting sneakers and activewear from ocean plastic and recycled material. Even Amazon, once criticized for its carbon footprint, has now aimed for net zero emissions by 2040. They have started investing in carbon-free energy and 100,000 electric delivery vehicles.
Did you know Indonesia is one of the countries actively committed to fighting climate change? Since signing the Paris Agreement and aligning with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Indonesia has taken bolder steps towards a greener, more sustainable future. But Jakarta, the beating heart of the nation, is in crisis. It's one of the fastest sinking cities in the world, battling overpopulations, traffic, and rising sea levels.
This brings us to one of Indonesia's boldest moves yet, relocating its capital to a new city, Nusantara.
But is it really sustainable? The development process hasn't come without environmental costs. Reports have shown deforestation, threats to biodiversity, and disruption to local communities. Even though the vision is visionary, it needs tighter regulation for the environment.
Back in Jakarta, one of the solutions already in place is ganjil genap, or odd-even license plate rule. On certain routes and specific hours, only cars with odd or even number plate can pass, depending on the specific date. This policy has helped reduce emissions and push more people to use public transport, contributing to cleaner air and supporting SDG 11 and 13.
With Presidential Regulation Number 55 of 2019, the government laid out a national roadmap for EV adoption. Now in 2023, subsidies for electric motorcycles were introduced. It is up to 7 million rupiahs per unit. Interesting, isn't it?
Electricity provider, along with private companies, are rolling out charging stations across cities. And thanks to its massive nickel reserves, Indonesia is also going to build battery factories with major global investors like Hyundai and LG.
Indonesia began formally committing to the SDGs in 2017 through Presidential Regulation Number 59. Since then, sustainability has been integrated into national planning, from infrastructure to energy, and even into village development programs.
There's already real progress. The measurable SDGs are already on track or already achieved. Indonesia is walking a long road to sustainability, one policy, one project, and one step at a time.
Now that we have seen how Indonesia is tackling climate change, let's have a quick look how other nations are stepping up.
Starting in Europe, Germany stands out as a global leader in renewable energy. With a strong focus on wind and solar power, sustainability is deeply embedded in the country's national strategy. Moving to Asia, Japan takes a slightly different road by emphasizing innovation. The country leads in developing clean technologies, particularly electric vehicles and energy-efficient systems. Down in Oceania, Australia is making the most of its natural resources. With an abundance of sunshine and strong winds, the nation is rapidly advancing its shift to renewable energy. And over in North America, the United States is combining technology and policy to drive progress. Through major investments in solar and wind power, the country is pushing forward with a clean energy solutions.
But what ties all of these efforts together? Here's where accountants come in.
Accounting is no longer just about the past, it's about shaping the future. Today's accountants are evolving, from number crunchers to strategic thinkers, from data reporters to business partners. Trusted advisors who see the big picture, start to finish.
This is where we come in. We identify the threats: flooding, extreme heat, and rising carbon taxes. We identify the scenarios. What if these happen? What's the impacts on assets, operations, and the bottom line? Here, collaboration matters. Risk analyst spots the threats, and we as accountants quantify them. Through scenario modeling, we map ripple effects, asset degradation, reduced revenue, rising insurance premiums, and regulatory fines. We turn physical risk into financial insight, so a leader can act before the damage strikes. And this is where ICAEW empowers us, not with just tools, but with vision. They equip us with the frameworks, training, and ethical compass to take action with clarity and confidence. But identifying risk is only half the job. The next step, communicating it. Investors, regulators, lenders, they all need clarity. They need to understand a company's true climate exposure.
Enter IFRS S2, a global framework raising the bar. It demands more than targets, it demands proof, a roadmap, a reality check. A key part of this, emissions reporting. But it's not just one number.
It's 3 scopes. Scope 1, direct emissions from company operations. Scope 2, indirect emissions from energy consumption. Scope 3, everything else, emissions across the value chain.
Together, this gives us a full picture of climate impact. And once again, ICAEW is at the forefront, guiding, challenging and supporting its member to ensure sustainability reporting is transparent, trustworthy, and decision-ready.
But let's ask the bigger question. If climate change tests the resilience of companies, shouldn't we become more resilient too? You know, we can't work in silos anymore. We need integrated thinking, seeing outside the company as clearly as we see within. Because resilience isn't just about surviving today, it's about sustaining tomorrow. This is where sustainability and risk management intersect. Sustainability asks, how do we last?
Risk management asks, what could stop us?
Together, they turn reaction into strategy, and we accountants stand right at that intersection. We're not just watching numbers, we're tracking a company's pulse.
So what does it mean? It means growth. It means upskilling our mindset, our knowledge, and our adaptability. Because no machine can replace someone who thinks critically, sees the full landscape, and drives long-term value. So we must see beyond the numbers. We are not replaceable as long as we evolve. The world is changing.
Complexity is rising.
And in that chaos, accountants can become clarity.
We can be the heartbeat of our organizations.